It's time for really quick equity and excellence in teaching tips. I am your host, Michelle Singh, an educator, professor, author, student, and mother. I'm happy to share this topic from the Equal methodology, which is a framework for diversity, equity, and inclusion in education. So let's get right into our conversation.
What if your classroom were a place where connections flourished and it flourished beyond textbooks and beyond your lesson plans? And this is a place where you and your students were able to embark on journeys of understanding and appreciation of diverse cultures. Well, culturally responsive teaching can bring this vision to life, and it can really empower you to build authentic and meaningful relationships with your students, with their families, and with the wider community. I want to share this example that illustrates the power of building bridges through relationships. It relates to my daughter, who was tasked with interviewing a family member about their life in a different era. And she chose to interview my grandfather, which was her great grandfather. And you can see here a picture of my daughter and my grandfather, or her great grandfather. So for her class assignment, she asked him questions about his childhood and his upbringing, because it was about the cultural history and the differences between the generations. So she interviewed my grandfather, and I was lucky enough to capture the entire interview on camera. And today, those videos are really treasures for our family because my grandfather is no longer with us. He passed away just a few years ago. And because, of his history, he was an Indian man, he was from Jamaica, and he courageously left behind the only home that he knew to create a new beginning in America, in Florida, in Miami, in a foreign country, all for the sake of creating a brighter future for his children and his grandchildren, me and my brother and my cousins. And of course, that trickled down into generations with our own children as well. So his great grandchildren, which he was fortunate to be able to see in his lifetime. So these videos ultimately serve as a testament to the resilience of my grandfather and the sacrifice of my grandfather. And it's our family's history in those videos. So I extend my deepest gratitude to my daughter's teacher at the time, her English teacher at the time, Miss Dillon. And it was through Miss Dillon's assignment that my grandfather's voice came alive. And we were able to connect the generations and highlight the value of culturally responsive teaching through this particular project or assignment. And so the lesson is very clear: nurturing strong relationships with students, their families, and even the wider community is the foundation for quality education. So to further emphasize the impact of culturally responsive teaching, let's dive into 3 practical strategies that can help you build these invaluable relationship bridges. Number 1 is to establish regular communication channels. Number 2 is to encourage students to conduct interviews. Number 3 is to provide opportunities for families to contribute. And so by embracing these 3 strategies, you're gonna be able to create an inclusive and empowering environment where the richness of those diverse cultures can flourish, like it did in my daughter's high school English class. So let's explore how we can strengthen these bonds between students and families and the broader community, and how we can pave the way for really deep learning experiences to take place, and these deep learning experiences that extend far beyond the walls of the classroom. So let's start with topic number 1, which is establishing regular communication channels. So you should establish ongoing and two-way communication that create meaningful connections with your families and the parents, and even with the community as well. This is going to nurture a collaborative learning environment. And here is a practical example of what this can look like in your classroom. It's simple. Send out weekly or monthly or even quarterly newsletters to your parents and their families, and share updates on your classroom activities and upcoming events and projects, and highlights of students' achievements. You can even include a section in there where families can contribute their own stories, their traditions, their experiences, anything related to your topics, your current topics of study. And if you want to use an online platform for your newsletter, like let's say Sway or Nearpod or Canva or Schmore, you can include a link to a form, whether it's a Microsoft form or Google form, SurveyMonkey, whatever you choose to use. And parents can complete the form, this family submission, where they can ask questions or share whatever their submissions are for the newsletter. Or you could just put a shortcut link like a bit.ly link. If you do a printed newsletter that you send home, you can just add a QR code for the parents to scan the QR code to get access to the form to submit their family submission. And this will allow for your families to actively participate. It allows for the communication to be two-way, because you're giving information, but they're also able to share information with you and ask questions. And ultimately, everyone's participating in the child's learning, and it's strengthening the connection between you and the parents and the families, between the home and between the school. So now that we've talked about communication, let's shift our focus to the second topic, which are interviews. I shared the story earlier about my daughter's interview with my grandfather. So you could see why it is important to provide opportunities for your students to conduct these kinds of interviews about their family's history and culture and traditions. This helps the students really to develop a deeper understanding of their own identity. It fosters a sense of pride, and it can unlock hidden treasures of their family's history and really be important to the families themselves, right? So have you considered a cultural timeline project? This is where you can assign students a project where they create a timeline representing significant events and milestones and traditions in their family's history. Students can research and they can collect information from family members through interviews, right? They can collect photographs or even video clips and historical records, and create some kind of visual representation of their family's journey over time. And you can even add a technology aspect to it, a component, a multimedia component to it, and allow them to use tools like Microsoft Flip or Canva or WeVideo or iMovie to create a multimedia digital story, right? And projects like these can truly help students to develop skills in historical research, in critical thinking, in organization of data. And it's also interdisciplinary because it can connect history and language arts and technology and art and music and other subject areas as well, depending on what they uncover in their research. And it also encourages students to recognize the interconnectedness of their personal stories and historical events that may have gone on during the time of whatever it was that they uncovered in their family's history. So now that we've explored interviews, let's delve into the final topic, which relates to family contributions. You should also provide opportunities for families to contribute to the curriculum by sharing culturally relevant resources and books and artifacts that can enrich the learning experiences of students. And this helps to foster a sense of belonging and unity as well. So here's one practical example of what this can look like for you in your classroom. This could be a cultural exchange. It could be where you encourage students to, and parents and families, right, to bring in culturally relevant artifacts and objects and even books, to share with the class that come from their families. These can include traditional clothing. It can include musical instruments and artwork and stories and proverbs, or other items of historical significance. And you can create a designated area, a designated space in your classroom where you can highlight and showcase these items and explain the significance of these items, right? And so for me, being Jamaican, I love Anansi stories, right? And when my daughter was young, I really went on a quest to find these Anansi storybooks for her because the libraries didn't have them, the school didn't have them. And I was determined to ensure that my daughter knew about Anansi, the mischievous spider. And what struck me about this was that a cultural exchange in her class would have been ideal for her to bring in her Anansi stories so that the kids in her class could have also immersed themselves in the world of Anansi. So let's create opportunities like these, for our students and their families to celebrate their diverse cultures and to enrich the learning experiences for all students, right? Because ultimately all students will benefit from what they learn from each other, from hearing each other's stories and hearing each other's voices. So we've explored the ways in which culturally responsive teachers can build relationship bridges with students, their families, and even the broader community. And by implementing the following strategies: number one, establishing regular communication channels; number two, encouraging students to conduct interviews; and number three, providing opportunities for students, for families to contribute. All of those strategies, those three strategies, will allow you to embrace the richness of the diverse cultures that sit in your classroom. And you're creating a learning environment that celebrates and that uplifts every single student in that classroom. So thank you for your dedication and willingness to embark on this journey of equity and excellence in teaching. And I'd like to leave you with one final thought before you go. As teachers, we hold the key to foster collaborative relationships that empower our students and enhance their learning experiences. And by implementing culturally responsive teaching practices, we can create these partnerships that support our students' growth and their well-being and their success, both inside the classroom and outside the classroom. So, how will you leverage the power of relationships with students, with families, and the community to foster a culturally responsive classroom that celebrates diversity and that promotes student success?
The next move is on you. So let's put these ideas to work. Take time to implement and time to reflect. And don't forget to join the conversation. I invite you to share your thoughts and progress with our community online at LCT-E Learning. You may even use the hashtag #LearnWithLCT-E. We look forward to engaging with you. Thank you for watching.